Immersive Reader is an important tool to increase accessibility for students who may have print disabilities or for second language learners. It is important to note that in order to access the built-in Immersive Reader, students need to be using the online version of Word, built into the Office 365 suite.
Hi everyone. So today I'm actually going to talk to you a little bit about Immersive Reader. It's a cool little add-on that comes with the Microsoft Office suite. So if you are a Concordia student, it means you have access to Office 365. And when you log in, I have an account that's quite well used. So you can see I have lots of clutter here. But once you log in, you have access to all sorts of different apps. So just to make sure you know where to go, most people use Office 365 exclusively for their email, but it's important to know that there are so many different apps that you can use, one being Word. Now, I'm not going to get into major details about Word today because the focus really is on the Immersive Reader. However, it is important to know that Immersive Reader is really for the online version of Word. So for many of us that were born a while ago, we were used to the desktop version of Word. But for this case, you really need to be in the online version in order for Immersive Reader to work. And one of the downfalls I find for Immersive Reader is I always forget where it's located. Sometimes the go-to is the ... And so sometimes I'm assuming that the more options is where you can find it. But it really actually is in the view. So it's important to remember if you go to view, you can obviously zoom in, do a bunch of different things, but the Immersive Reader function is built right there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And as you can see, it is the Immersive Reader's taken the text, the small amount of text that I had written, and already made it more accessible in the fact that it is much bigger. So if you have any students with print disabilities, this Immersive Reader is a tool that could really help them. I have text preferences, so I can actually increase or decrease my text size for students who might have a vision impairment. That could be helpful. I can also increase or decrease spacing. Sometimes the spacing helps, especially for students who might have dyslexia or other kind of print disabilities. I can also change my font, and I can also select a color that might be more accessible to me. So black on white can be difficult for some people to read with. So I can go ahead and change the background color. I do have a built-in reader. I can definitely play with my voice settings. So I can slow down or speed up how quickly the person is reading. And I can also choose a female or male voice. If somebody from Office 365 is listening, they could be more inclusive and offer a gender neutral voice as well. So hopefully that's coming. What's really cool is that I also have built-in image options for anybody who might be learning a second language or is working on some of their vocabulary. So what's really great is that most of my nouns, if I'm going into my reading preferences, I can turn on a picture dictionary. And that's actually using Boardmaker technology, which for anybody who has worked with students creating social stories or working on any kind of vocabulary acquisition, you'll know that Boardmaker is a very popular tool. And so the images might be familiar to students who already have accessibility difficulties. And we have some options. So if we're working on the word that says print, it's showing a few examples of what print means. Okay. Disabilities, it's giving me an example as well. tool, again, an example. So this is another really great way for a second language learner to pick up vocabulary. And there's other hidden features for that second language learner as well. So I can actually choose to translate the print that's there. It's not going to be perfect. However, I think the major advantage to Immersive Reader is just the amount of languages that are available. I can choose from actually 3 different kinds of French. So I can Canadian French or France French or even Switzerland French. So I know that we've had in recent years many students, international students. We know that there's all kinds of movement when it comes to our student population, and it's nice to have this extra option for a student that maybe has not acquired English or French yet, can do some translating. So as you can see, if I select French, I'm going to just move myself up, I can translate the document, and you'll see that the Immersive Reader has translated it for me into French and is still explaining my nouns. So student, it's got an example of student there as well. Another interesting thing, first I'm going to go back into my French and just turn it back to English for our purposes today. I can use this as a great way to point out parts of speech to children as well. So if I'm going to go back to my grammar options, okay, I can actually turn my nouns on so that they show up as a different color. So right away, I have students who would recognize the nouns and be able to locate their nouns. Now, if I'm working on adjectives with my students and I'm asking them to turn on adjectives, if I'm specifically asking my student to add more descriptive language in their text, well, right away I can say, okay, well, you have 2 adjectives in your text. Can you increase your adjectives by 3, for example? Adverbs, there can be a tricky one as well. Now, if I turn them on and I see no adverbs here, I know that my students can add some adverbs to their text as well. And I can actually choose to show labels so that it's not just the color coding, but we also have to consider some who may have color blindness, and it actually will indicate whether we're talking about a noun or an adjective. So this is another super feature that's already built in. And another great thing for students who may have dyslexia is that it can actually break down the word by syllable. So if a student is sounding out each syllable at a time, this is an advantage to them. And whatever's happening on their computer screen isn't necessarily what their peers are seeing. So it helps them to break down the word, and it's all built in, so nobody even has to disclose that their syllables have been broken down for them. And finally, when we talk about reading preferences, if we have a student who needs to focus in on one line at a time, we have that line focus. So it's not only going to focus on the line, okay, it's also going to focus as it reads to me. So you get the idea. I can just press escape to return back to my page from Immersive Reader. If we're talking about any disadvantages, one thing, so I'm going to go back to my Immersive Reader, I'm going to click View Immersive Reader, is that I can't actually do any editing when I'm in Immersive Reader. So it would be nice if my student was playing back some of the text and the reader actually misread a word because potentially I've misspelled it. It would be nice if I was able to edit right here, but unfortunately I have to go back. So I do have to either press escape or press the arrow back to make any changes to my text. I do think that it's a pretty amazing built-in add-on. And what's also nice to know is that Immersive Reader is available within Microsoft Office Forms. So if you create a quiz of any kind, students, adults, anybody, any kind of learner could actually translate the questions right inside the form and have it read to them. So right away we have a built-in accessibility that we don't even really need to think twice about. So I highly recommend it for that reason as well. I hope that you give it a try. There's probably way more applications than I've shown you today. You can play around with all the different types of abilities that are there. And the great thing about Microsoft is every time they come up with a new technology, it seems to improve quickly over time. So if you don't find your language yet, as you can see, there's so many, they're usually on the way. That's it for today, and thank you for listening.